Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Okay, so I just.
Good morning, everyone. Or afternoon, I guess it might be.
Hi, good to see you. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Alyssa.
Hey, Debbie. Marion, did you share your screen or your?
No, I'm having trouble getting the slide into the right place. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. But good morning, everyone, while I'm trying to do that. And we'll welcome everybody formally in just a second, and I'm sure there'll be more people coming in. Okay, now I can. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we could acknowledge today as we start. So of course, happy 76th birthday to the State of Israel. A momentous day, and certainly a momentous time in Jewish history. And just to, to acknowledge today, when we scheduled this way back when in the fall, we knew it was Yom Ha'atzmaut, and we figured we'd make some tie-in with the work that Kayla is going to do with us today. But of course, things didn't unfold this year the way we thought it would. So just sort of a moment to acknowledge the momentousness of where we are as a Jewish people and where the state is. And now I'm going to turn it over to Robin Kahn, my colleague from Hebrew College, to formally welcome us to our workshop today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Marion. My name is Robin Kahn. I work on the professional development, the MaTaRoT team at Hebrew College, and it's a pleasure once a month to gather for a workshop. Some of you may know that our theme this year has been storytelling and how we tell our stories. And this morning, my friend and colleague, Kayla Reisman, is with us. Kayla is the outreach officer for PJ Library at the Grinspoon Foundation. She has a master's in Jewish professional leadership and business administration from the Hornstein program at Brandeis. And previously, she's worked in Hillel's, JCC's, synagogues, and camps across New York and Massachusetts. She currently lives in Chicago with her husband, Andrew, and most importantly, her very cute 2-year-old Ruthie. Kayla, welcome. And maybe I'll just ask quickly, I don't know, can people just put their hand up if they know something about PJ Library? They've heard of it? And like maybe on a scale of 1 to 5, like how much do you think you know about it? Like I know tons, or like
Ooh, Esther.
Esther. All right, great. Excellent. And maybe in the chat, people can just write where they're calling in from, so we have a sense of where we are in the world.
And we're happy for you to share your connection to PJ Library in the chat too. If you receive books either at your institution or at home, and why you might be a 10 out of 5. That's what I want to know. Also, if you have a favorite Jewish book, you can share that in the chat too. And I'm fortunate to be joined by my colleagues, Alyssa Cates, who's at the Boston JCC, who runs PJ Library in Boston, and Tracy Newman, who's the Director of Community Engagement at the Harold Grinspoon Foundation with me. So as you guys, and I'm excited to see where people are calling in from as well. As people are sharing in the chat, oh, only 9 shares. I don't think I know that one. That sounds like a good one. Oh, Alyssa's nodding. She's very familiar. And Tracy.
I can get it to you, Kayla, if you need it.
Yeah, definitely curious. Is there a big Boston contingency here, or people are calling in from other places as well?
It looks to me like Andrea is our only local. Oh, Debbie and Andrea. But they're both not on screen yet, or right now. Hi, good morning, Debbie, and good morning, Andrea. Not sure if you're in a place where you can open the video. Hi.
Great. Well, we're so glad to have you here, and please continue to share in the chat all of those things. Do I have screen sharing privileges? Am I able to?
You should, but I can make you co-host if you don't.
Let's
Oh,
see,
you
does
do?
this work?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, hold on
Great.
now. I can't, oops, move it over. There we go. Slideshow. Okay, so does that look like
Yep.
slideshow to you? Great. So throughout this hour that we have together, we are excited to share with you a little bit more. I know people said that they are recipients of PJ Library books. We have a little bit of statistics to share with you to continue, hopefully teach you some new things about PJ Library that you maybe didn't know. And the second half of this call, we're going to be talking about how to use PJ Library books in thinking about engaging diverse families and in thinking about using our concepts of windows and mirrors, which we will talk about later. And we hope that participating today will help you to feel inspired to reach out to new families, to join, attend, and feel welcome at synagogue programming, and that you'll get a little bit of nuggets of how you can use the PJ Library books and resources and local professionals to create inclusive and engaging programs. So it sounds like everybody's pretty familiar. We are celebrating 18 years of PJ Library this year, which is very exciting. We've matured to adulthood, and we send about 206,000 books every month across 40 countries. So it's grown tremendously over the last 18 years from just mailing in Western Massachusetts to 200 communities in the US and Canada. The PJ Library is funded by the Harold Grinspoon Foundation, which for those of you in Massachusetts is local to you. They're based in Springfield, Massachusetts, and Harold Grinspoon is still with us, age 95. Really an amazing guy who cares deeply about Jewish education and cares deeply about reaching families that are not affiliated with synagogues and helping them to, especially people that live in more remote areas or might not have access to or might not have ever considered like joining synagogues. How can we help them to have Jewish education in their homes? And so he founded the Grinspoon Foundation and the Harold Grinspoon Charitable Foundation, which is also based in Western Mass. And Winnie Sandler Grinspoon is the president of the foundation, and she is also in the Boston area in Waltham. You might be wondering, like, why are some of these statistics important? We did a triennial study in 2019, and we just finished our last triennial study. The data is coming out this summer that shows that 89% of people that receive PJ Library books find it as a valuable parenting tool, and that for many of them, PJ Library is a main source for learning about Jewish values, that if they're not attending synagogue regularly, this may be the place where they're getting information about holidays and Jewish culture and history. And 69% of families are more likely to attend a local event if it's sponsored or endorsed by PJ Library, which is a positive for each of you, no matter what community you live in, that you have local program professionals that are happy to partner with you if you're interested in reaching families that might not be currently affiliated with your synagogue to come to your Purim carnivals and your Hanukkah happenings and all of the events that you're planning throughout the year. Those are opportunities to partner with your local PJ Library professional that might have lists of local families that do not belong to a synagogue, live in your zip codes in your areas, that are looking for Jewish experiences. The other facts from our 2019 triennial survey that I thought would be interesting to share is that 28% of families enroll children in Jewish summer camp or overnight camp because they received PJ Library books, that learning about the holidays and learning about Jewish culture from PJ Library in their homes has encouraged them not only to do camp, but also day schools and after school and weekend programs. So this is a huge impact that Herald has created, this ripple effect that can benefit you in your communities as well. Just a few myths before we talk a little bit more about how we can do it in our communities is that people think, you might think, oh, every family in my synagogue already gets PJ Library books, but in our estimation, we expect that only about 30% of Jewish children in the US and Canada are receiving PJ Library books. So this is true in every community. I live in Chicago now, and we expect that only about 26% of families in the greater Chicago area are receiving PJ Library books, which is crazy because there's 6 synagogues in walking distance of me, and there are families that may go to synagogue every week and may not be receiving PJ books. And that people think, oh, it's only for little kids. I saw somebody in the chat had mentioned that they're a PJ Our Way recipient at their home, which is our books for ages 9 to 12. And we don't repeat books very often. Many books that you might have received in the past, families might not receive again for another 5 or 6 years, or might not get repeated at all. So it's a great idea to sign up all of your children because you'll get new books every year. This is brand new information. The slide that I had originally had here was from like 2 or 3 months ago, and it said 35 countries. And in the last couple of months, we've increased to now send books to 40 countries across 6 continents. We recently added Argentina and Thailand to our book recipients. So, and we're mailing books in 7 languages across all of these countries. So that is many more than we were 18 years ago. And the impact is similar in the other countries as well, in the sense that many families there do not have access to synagogue life and day schools, but they're still receiving PJ books as a main source of their Jewish education. I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa, who is, as I mentioned, our program professional in the Boston area. But as I said, we have almost 200 communities across the US and Canada where there are variations of Alyssa and her role that are serving their local communities.
So hi, everybody. It sounds like I'm not, I'm a few of your PJ professionals. I stop before Worcester. I don't do the North Shore. I don't do Merrimack Valley, but I do the greater Boston area. And I am out of the JCC in Newton. So PJ Library is administered through different organizations, including Jewish Federations, JCC. So here in Boston, we're out of the JCC. We currently have over 7,100 children enrolled in PJ, and those are the 0 to 8-year-olds. And 1,100 children are enrolled in PJ Our Way, and we average more than 100 new subscriptions every month. We've been doing a campaign thanks to help from Kayla and Tracy. We have a social media campaign going on. I think it ended last weekend to try and up subscriptions. So we've been doing a big push. And last year around this time, we were averaging around, I think it was 88 subscriptions. So we're doing really great. PJ Library families reside in 132 communities in the greater Boston area. I will say, I was looking through it and it does include like different neighborhoods in Boston. So it's, yeah, but we service 96, I think, towns, but we are all over the area. And in 2022 to 2023, we offered over 150 family programs, which were attended by 3,700 families. And we do send a monthly newsletter out to PJ Library subscribers, and it reaches more than 1,300 people. Do you want to hit the next slide? So how can we work together? I can provide you with books. So if I have a book in stock, if you're looking for a specific book, and I have it in stock, I'm happy to send it to you. If you shoot me an email and say, and this goes for everybody's PJ professional, if you shoot me an email and say, I am looking for actually, this literally just happened right before this call. Our after school director came and said, I'm looking for a book to read out loud about Yom Ha'atzmaut to our after school kids. What do you recommend? So if you send me something like that, I can send you a specific book. If I don't have a book in stock and you're looking to order them, if the Grinspoon Foundation has them in stock, I can order them for you directly for $3 a book, and I can send them to you that way. Otherwise, PJ Books are available on Amazon. I can also support with program design. So as I said, we offered over 150 programs last year. We are offering that many now as well. I just don't have all the data compiled yet from this year. But I can help with programs for families. That's our kind of area of expertise. I'm on the family engagement team at the JCC. And so this is what we do is we design programs for families. And I am happy to help with that if that's something that you need. I can also promote your programs through, if possible. I can't say always, but if space allows, I can promote your programs through the community section of our monthly newsletter. And I said together we can provide many choices for families seeking Jewish connection. So I don't know if you know about our Welcome Baby program. So the JCC has a program where we welcome new babies to the Jewish community. It's sponsored by CJP, which is the Jewish Federation here in Boston. We work with a lot of families from 0 to 2 is our Welcome Baby program. And right now they may not be looking for synagogues or for connection or looking for connection in different ways, but we know that once they have school-age children that they're typically looking for synagogues. So by kind of staying connected, that's something that we can work on together and find the best place for these families. We also offer public space programming to bring Jewish content directly to families. So we on this weekend, I'm going to be at the Watertown Library with Temple Shalom of Newton, running a program that we call Shalom Together Shabbat, where we have young families come and we will be doing some Lag BaOmer programming. We're going to have a little fake bonfire, some fake little s'mores, and do some cute programming around that. Should I take questions, Kayla, or do you want to continue?
All right, I couldn't find the unmute button. Yeah, if there was a question
Yeah.
in the chat for you, Alyssa, about
Oh, let me see.
your mailing list. So
Oh, great. Yeah.
If there's other questions, happy to answer them. I'm curious. We had mentioned like we were hoping that maybe people might learn things about PJ Library that they didn't know previously. If anybody has learned anything new, also they can share that in the chat too, or come off mute if they have questions or want to share anything that they did not previously know.
I'm also wondering, and maybe we can do it after the session, but for Esther in Nashua and Juliet in the Bay Area, if you know the contact of the people they would get in touch with.
Yeah, maybe Tracy, if you can share in the chat where people can find their
Yep.
the community map.
Yep. And can I assume, Andrea, you're in like North Shore area?
Yes,
Perfect. Okay. I'll put that in the chat.
thanks.
Okay, thank you, Juliet, for your response also in the chat. We'll get there. We're getting there.
Yeah. Great. So we'll keep going to the diversity part as well. So as Tracy's sharing some of our website resources, there's also resources about all of the Jewish holidays on our website. And also thank you to Alyssa for sharing. And as she said, we will help you get connected to your PJ professionals in your communities for those of you across the country. So you'll see that we have resources here, and in particular that they're not specifically Ashken normative resources, that we do offer resources for holidays like SIGD and other. We just started a new Sephardic initiative that we're encouraging authors that are writing books about Sephardi experiences to join us for Israel trips, join us for authors retreats, to be able to create more books in those spaces. So you can find a lot of those resources on our website here. And I think this is like the final background part on PJ Library before we move into how to use the books and thinking about engaging diverse families. But something that I think is a missed opportunity, and I know, as Robin said, I have a 2-year-old, so we read a lot of PJ Library books in my household. Our current favorite is Dream Big, Laugh Often by Hannah Piven. We read that one every single night and sometimes at nap time too. And last night, since we've been reading it 700 times and I was getting a little bit bored of just the content in the book, I said to my daughter, like, let's look at the flaps and let's think about some of the big picture questions that we ask there. So each book that PJ Library sends out has these both like activities that families or schools can do, and why PJ Library chose this book to send out, or what like concepts you could be talking about with your children with it. So for Dream Big, Laugh Often, which is like little short stories about certain biblical characters, the flaps that we read last night gave an example of an art project that we could do, that we could make characters out of the everyday objects like Hannah Piven does. And they talked about some of the stories that they chose and why, and some of the takeaways that they were hoping that people might get from reading the story of Sarah or Joseph with their children. So some of them have recipes, some of them have games. There's a lot that you can look at from there. I'm curious, before we go into the conversation about mirrors and windows, has anyone run a program using a PJ Library book in the past and potentially used any of the book flaps? And you can come off mute and answer because we're a small group.
So
I can just say that as a grandmother, I have used the flaps with my grandchildren.
Can you give a specific example, Mary?
I'm trying to remember we did something where it must have been, which one it was, about the kid that builds the sukkah, and there was a building project thing. I just remember measuring and cutting and right. And I don't remember what's the name of that book, Herschel's Home or whatever it's called, something like that.
Fun.
I haven't used the flaps, though I've looked at them. We have a Hoog, an elective, or have this year, that was a graphic novels Hoog, and PJ Library or PJ supported our Hoog and sent us all the multiple copies of the books that we used. So that was really great.
I'm just curious, Kayla, some of them don't have flaps, right? Or are those the older books?
The board books, like the books for ages 0 to 2, don't have flaps. I think even the older one, like the ones from past years, should have flaps.
So I just pulled the Something from Nothing book right here, which is one of my favorites, the Something from Nothing. I didn't see a flap in that book, but it's one of my favorites to read with my grandchildren, really my oldest grandchild, my granddaughter, who's 5.5, but we've been reading it for quite a while now.
I'm looking, I don't see a PJ logo on that one. Sometimes you might have a book that PJ sends.
On the back.
That's an OG. That's an original PJ Library logo and one of our first books that we
Yeah,
sent.
that's what I thought.
So as
That's
Kayla said, we're celebrating our 18 years, and you just held up where we're from and what we're heading to. And so I'd say we're getting smarter with time, and not only did we add flaps, but now they're two-sided flaps. Like, we might as well use all the real estate that we have, and they're really designed to be educational, to help the books and the stories be educational tools for the reader. And like Kayla mentioned, in your 400th reading of a book, sometimes you need a little bit another angle, and those prompts and activities on the right side of the flap are designed to keep the reader sane.
Another great one was Mr. Mince's Blintzes that I read twice already within the same week with my grandchildren. And we were so excited about the way it rhymed and the fact that there was a recipe for the blintzes, and we talked about, should we make the blintzes? It was just wonderful. The books have been wonderful.
We
So-
think so too.
So as an educator, I've been using them like from the beginning, which is kind of fun to know that it's 18 years and to have seen how it's evolved and developed, expanded, grown. So, and previously, so I years of work in the greater Boston area, and always in working with younger kids, the first thing I'd say to parents when I met them is, do you know about PJ Library? And of course, comes out of my mouth way too fast. They don't know what I'm talking about. So a long time ago, I even created a little piece of paper that said, here, this is what you want. If you want free books, no one's going to say no to free books. It worked. And that they're free Jewish books on top of it. Right. And they were coming to what was used to be called the religious school on Sundays. They now have different names. And it was always wonderful. I sent many friends who have young children. I've said, hey, by the way, PJ Library, and they don't know about it because they're wherever they are. I hope my nephew in England is getting them for his son, that kind of thing. I can only push so hard. My nephew in Connecticut definitely signed up as soon as I let him know about it. So, that's an easy thing to do. In the classroom, though, I'm a book person. I love storybooks. I have a ridiculous collection of them that I'm now starting to give away. That I use them every week. So every week, whatever the theme is in our learning center, I go to our library, which is run by a volunteer, Ellie Schwartz. And I'll pick out every book, PJ Library book, and any book that has, the theme. And then I'll choose one to read out loud during break because the kids have an opportunity. Anyway, so the other thing that I've gotten used to using is I'll go to the website to get the I call it the reading guide, right? So I can see that, the flaps are like the reading guide, right? The teaching guide of what to do with it, which is wonderful. Again, as an educator, as a parent, you can't have enough of this stuff to help direct you of what to do with a book. One of the things I have been doing is, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm wondering that if we want to move into the workshop part, I know Kayla prepared a book for us to look at.
Okay.
But
Great.
yeah, the website is full of amazing resources, and I
Yep.
definitely am on there often.
Yep.
Well, Esther, I think what you were talking about is a great transition into what we were thinking of, that it sounds like you're using the books for both in your family and in your school to think about engaging with kids, and that is what we're going to go into. So if you save these ideas, we'll have additional opportunities to talk about it for sure. I think what you were talking about leads right into this concept that I wanted to share about mirrors and windows that I mentioned at the beginning, that we at PJ Library want all of our books to both be a mirror to families, to see themselves in the book, to see, we read books in our house about having a Passover Seder, and then we have a Passover Seder, and my daughter says, oh, this is just like in the book where we're inviting Elijah in. That's something that we do in our house at Passover, and that's something that the book characters did. And a window is an opportunity to see somebody else's experience. That when we read a book like Shoham's Bengals that takes place in the Middle East, it's not an experience that we have personally in my household on a weekly basis, like we have Shabbat or we have a Passover Seder yearly, but we're learning about families outside of our experience that are part of the greater Jewish world, and connecting with Jews around the world through that window into their experience and their lives. So what I wanted to do quickly is I'm going to stop my share so that I can share this book. Hold on, which Alyssa is going to read for us. Hi, Joan. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I lost track of time.
We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
We Alyssa is going to do a dramatic reading for us of a book that many of you may be familiar with. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we could use a book like this to engage families through the concept of mirrors and windows, and thinking about people that have experiences similar to us and people that are bringing new experiences in, and how we can learn from them. So Alyssa, are you, where I lost you on
I'm
this.
ready. I'm here.
Okay.
Chick
Go ahead.
Chack Shabbat. Every Saturday, a wonderful smell wafted from apartment 5A. It curled into 4D, tickling Tommy Santiago's nose as he played his tuba. It slipped into 3C, tempting Senora Belagali as she bustled around dusting her teacups. It crept under the door of 2B, tantalizing Mr. Moon as he sat typing his new romance novel. Even the Omar family on the first floor caught a whiff. They sniffed the air and smiled. At last, the door to 5A flew open. Out stepped Goldie Simcha, her face shining like a silver spoon. Come in, it's Cholent time. As her neighbors took their places at the table, Goldie ladled steaming stew into their bowls. While they ate, they argued about what made Goldie's cholent so delicious. Senora Belagali cried, "It's the tomatoes!" "Or the barley," offered Mr. Moon. Little Lali Omar piped up, "The potatoes!" And the Santiagos all agreed it had to be the beans. But Goldie shook her head. "When I was a girl," she said, "I always helped my grandmother get ready for Shabbat. All Friday afternoon, we rushed around, cutting up vegetables, sweeping the floor, dressing the table in its best lace tablecloth. Busy, busy, hurry, hurry, do it right away, chick-chack." But when the sun went down, my grandma lit the candles and Shabbat began. For one whole night and day, we put aside the things that kept us busy all week long. While the cholent bubbled slowly on the stove, we spent time in a special way, together. "I don't celebrate Shabbat exactly as my grandma did," said Goldie, "but every Friday afternoon I put a pot of cholent on the stove to bubble through the night and day. And when it's done at last, it has a special taste that isn't beans or barley or tomatoes or potatoes. For me, the taste of cholent is Shabbat." All her neighbors raised their spoons and said, "Shabbat." On one Saturday, however, something wasn't right. Tommy's tuba played nothing but sour notes. Senora Belagali's nicest teacup tumbled off the shelf and smashed. And Mr. Moon, exasperated, hurled the pages of his latest romance novel right across the room. The Omars sniffed and sniffed, but couldn't catch the faintest whiff. At last, little Lali Omar climbed the stairs and knocked on Goldie's door. Goldie answered, her face buried in a tissue. "Friday afternoon, I felt too sick to get the cholent on the stove," she said, and sniffed. "Now it's too late. You can't make cholent in a hurry right away, chick-chack." No cholent for Shabbat. Tommy Santiago dropped his tuba when he heard the news. Senora Belagali's feather duster flew in the air. Mr. Moon got so mixed up, he put a monster robot in his romance novel and it squashed the hero flat. On the first floor, the Omars frowned. "Poor Goldie," Mrs. Omar said. "It just won't be Shabbat for her," Mr. Omar agreed. Little Lali peered into the fridge. "Potato curry isn't the same thing as cholent," she said. "Still, it always cheers me up." As the Omars climbed the stairs with their bowl of potato curry, Mr. Moon came out of 2B with a tray. "Korean barley tea," he told them. "Of course it isn't cholent, but..." Senora Belagali squeezed out of 3C. "Tomato pizza," she puffed. "It's not cholent, but..." Tommy Santiago held the door of 4D open for his mother. "It's not cholent," she admitted cheerfully, "but everyone likes rice and beans." Goldie opened the door for them. She blew her nose, wiped her eyes, and smiled. Come in, come in. Her neighbors took their places at the table and they filled their plates. We didn't have time to make anything special, Senora Balagali apologized. We had to hurry, bring it right away, cheek chock. But here we are together. Here we are, said little Lolly Omar, together. Goldie took a bite of pizza, a nibble of curry, a mouthful of beans and rice. She sipped her barley tea. Then she looked around the table, her face shining like a silver spoon, and said, I think it tastes exactly like Shabbat.
Thank you, Alyssa. Well, yeah, well done. Dramatic reading. Wait, I lost my questions, which are on a different, where did they go? Here we go. We go back to the questions. Here we go. So can I see a show of hands? Wait, except I can't see you guys, so I need to see all of you so that I can see if you're raising your hands. If people have read this book before. Great. Esther, Julia, and Robin have. So we talked about maybe doing this in breakout rooms, or we could do it all together. Robin, what do you think?
I think we could do it all together.
Okay. So I'm curious whether this was your first time reading this book or if you've read it before, where you see windows and mirrors in this book. Robin, I know when you and I talked about it, you mentioned a couple. Do you want to start? Or
No, somebody else should. I feel like.
okay.
I'll say one. I think for me, the biggest window was when she said she still celebrates Shabbat, but not like her grandmother. So I'm at a Reform congregation, and I'm sure a lot of our families don't know what Cholent is unless they had a grandparent who made it. We're also in a small town, so there aren't large apartment buildings, probably not the same type of diversity in the towns where our members are. So I think it was, for me and my community, I think there are probably more mirrors. I said that backwards. There are more windows than mirrors. There's only the one, to me, there's only the one mirror of I celebrate Shabbat, but not like my grandmother.
And I'll just piggyback onto that I think it's important to let families know that even if you don't celebrate it like your grandmother, that's okay. And everyone can celebrate Shabbat in their own way. It doesn't have to be identical.
I think with younger families or kids that I deal with here in the Galut in the diaspora of New Hampshire, and the families that have, our small group and outside of our group, Shabbat isn't how celebrating Shabbat is a whole new concept. And so that's a big window. Not too many mirrors in this one, except trying to make the connection of when does your family sit together, come together for a meal, and starting with what they might actually have in common and have similar, as opposed to this is a whole new experience. The idea of getting together for something called Shabbat. And not making them feel bad about it. How's that? That's another big piece.
Totally, yeah.
So that made me think of another mirror. I'm sure our families will bring food when somebody's sick.
Excellent.
So I was so focused on Shabbat, it wasn't until you said that I realized there's that other side to the story too.
No, and so
That's a
one of the
great
activities there is clearly like a potluck. And so that would be another place to say, have you ever, again, to say to a child, have you ever been to a potluck? They might not even know what that word is, but if you're doing a family program, that's something where you could ask, to make that connection.
That was exactly one of the examples that I was going to give, that in DC, they'd use this book to have a community-wide potluck experience, and they invited people to bring family recipes. And, you know, many people in DC, I think, you know, as you said, as compared to potentially in like Nashua, which might be a more homogenous community, that in DC people were bringing foods from different countries and foods from different places where their families had come from, and they got to tell a little bit of a story through their food.
I have a question that I wasn't paying as close attention, but the other families in the apartment building, is it mentioned whether they're Jewish or not?
That's a great question. You know, I was also wondering that as we were doing this. You know, I've read this book a couple of times now, and this was the first time when I was reading it that I was thinking to myself, it's not mentioned. So, you know, I think both that families that would be Jewish or not Jewish that come from different backgrounds can feel that experience of Shabbat in this story together. Do you think that it changes the story if they are or are not Jewish?
I definitely do.
Mm.
I think the assumption I made was that the other families are not Jewish and are joining from their own unique cultures. And that, to me, we can't really tell the race of the main family. It's not very clear from the illustrations, but it's very Ashkenazi, right? There's Toland and so one of the things I've been really exploring and trying to develop in my book collection are stories that are about American Jews who are not the white Ashkenazi norm, or are not white, or I mean, there are lots of families who are not white and are Ashkenazi, and vice versa. So I've, you know, while I was listening, I went over to my shelf to pull some of the books that to me that applies to, because I want my students who are not white, and I have many, to see themselves centered in the story and not to see themselves as the other in the story. And I feel like this story it feels more like an ally story than a representative story.
Definitely. And that's what I was saying about how, you know, the assumption that people do Shabbat. Okay. What does doing Shabbat mean? Okay. Does it mean that we actually sit down to a meal? Do we do, and this is a Shabbat, a Holent moment, right? Do we light candles? Do we have challah? How do we do wine? I mean, there are people that have no idea what Kiddush is, you know, and that's not even in here, which is great, which is another good thing because it doesn't talk about that part of a Shabbat experience.
I think for me, one of the potential mirrors in the book could be that my family has a dinner together every Friday night. We often invite other people, and it's okay if we don't serve chicken and kugel, that any, you know, and we say to our when I worked in a synagogue, we said to our families, like, if pizza is what you can do on Friday night to have your family together with challah, like that is an opening for like, oh, it doesn't have to be this complicated meal. And so I wonder if part of it can be Shabbat, there are no rules with the food. And it's about being with family and community. Like to me, that could be a mirror.
Totally. Yeah, I connected with the, like, you don't need to do Kiddush to make it feel like Shabbat. You don't need to have chicken to make it feel like Shabbat. Like, I liked that each of the things that each of the other families brought, you know, like that her cholent was made of potatoes and barley and tomatoes, and you can have your tomatoes as part of your pizza, and you can have your potatoes as part of your curry, and you could have your barley as part of your tea. And it doesn't, you know, that it's about people coming together, you know, it's about having an experience together and kind of delving into what the value is rather than what the rituals need to be.
Julia,
I was gonna say the same thing. Go ahead, Robin.
No, I was just gonna say, Juliet, I'm curious if there's a way to read or adapt the book so that the other families, is there a way to, and I'm like literally taking poetic license and changing words so that the other families are Jewish? Like, and then how does that change? Like, can you achieve what you're looking, is there a way to achieve your goal by doing that? Is that possible in this? Because I agree with you that my assumption is they're not Jewish.
I think that's a really great question and a great point. I would want to look at that. I think it's possible. I mean, the main character is still the Ashkenazi girl, but like that doesn't have to mean the book's useless or anything like that.
I just wonder along those lines that if one were to take license and really re-edit the book in some way and recast it, to have the Korean bubble tea or barley tea, have it be a Korean Jew. And and that they bring their Jewish tea to the Shabbat meal. So that even, because I'm also thinking like the Chulin piece, and some people already alluded to this, that's also very foreign to most 21st century Jewish families. So that's as foreign as the Korean barley tea. So just
in our community, it's probably more foreign, and certainly free, which is much more common.
Completely. It's like,
And
how do we even, wait, what's the right way to pronounce it?
Yeah. And Esther, I'm really glad you brought up this question of othering when it comes to Shabbat dinner, and how it's so important that we don't make assumptions or prescriptions when it comes to our families, and that we're really welcoming them wherever they are.
Look, if they walk in the door and they already feel othered. There's just no question. I mean, when was the last, they come in, and each time they come in, I feel like saying, "Oh, you're back." Yeah. And I kind of do that. It's a little strange, but it's like, because it's like they can't believe they're there. They keep, and when they say that again and again, then I get to say, and you are, instead of like, well, what's wrong with that? I understand that this is a new experience, and I'm talking to people that are in their, in their early 30s with their little kids in tow, right? And the kids can't wait to come in, and of course what comes out of the parent mouth, which would be something like with this book too, is like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that." The adult is saying, "I didn't know that," and not making them say, "Great, we're learning this together," because these are new concepts to, like Marion, like you said, this 21st century young adult, right?
So I just want to make the connection that this is the mirrors and windows are core to our content. They are part of our content framework that our book selection committee, it's their, literal Bible that, they have this going on in their heads as they read through manuscripts and look at illustrations. And just as an aside, it takes, I don't know, about 18 months sometimes for us to get into a manuscript into a book. And so we've been working very hard to add the diverse collection, to add to our diverse collection of books. So if you haven't seen some of the 2022, 2023 book lineups, please talk to your program professional or reach out, Kayla. If you see something on our website, we can absolutely send you a copy of it. But the other connection I wanted to make is around the engagement side. And Kayla is going to talk a little bit more about, all the feelings that you just shared about reading this book and coming at it from multiple perspectives. How does that look at your marketing for your family programs, whether it be in-house family programs like all your synagogue members, but if you're encouraging them to bring a friend or whatnot, what kind of language and images and words are you putting out there? And are your local families seeing the diversity that you're intending to showcase? And so I think I really like bring rice 8 different ways, right? Like how do you, there's so many commonalities, but with one different spice, it's a completely different meal and it makes it so much better. And so how can you really encourage a diverse group of families to participate in your programming, whether or not they're synagogue members, which I know you all want to go beyond the scope of what you see and into your community.
Tracy, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about next. That as Tracy mentioned, my job title at PJ Library is focusing on outreach, and this workshop focuses on engaging diverse families. Many of you have mentioned families that already are part of your communities, and how can you help them to continue to feel welcome. But as Tracy said, one of the ways that PJ Library can continue to support your work as well is, as Alyssa mentioned, reaching out to unaffiliated families that aren't members of synagogues, and also to help you partner with your local organizations. I was thinking some examples that Chick Chack Shabbat made me think of is in Cleveland, for example, the program professional from PJ Library was planning a Jewish food festival that was going to have different rooms, and each room would focus on a different country and would have some food items from that country, a craft from that country, and that it would be an inclusive experience, and to be able to partner with other local organizations that might represent some of those communities can be a great way to bring in new families to your programming if they have listservs of people that are Jewish, but aren't looking for a conservative synagogue, or aren't looking for a Shabbat experience, but they would love to come and share their own heritage of food related items. So that was one idea that I was thinking about from Chick Chack Shabbat. And then I was also thinking about engaging same-sex couples, for example. I know when I worked at Temple Aliyah in Needham with my friend Joan Perlman, who is joining us today, that we were a very heteronormative, Ashkenormative synagogue, which I think is probably the case in many other places as well. And we talked about what would make people feel comfortable to come here if they could see other families that looked like them. So another book example, which isn't the one that we shared today, but might be one, to think about or talk about too, is Havdalah Sky, which represents a same-sex couple. And how could we have a Havdalah event that we partnered with the LGBT center locally to make families feel comfortable doing something like a PJ Havdalah with the local center. That people might say, oh, I'll see I'll see a mirror if I come, other families that look like me. I'm curious, we have just a few minutes left, so if anybody wants to share any other opportunities that they see for creating inclusive experiences, or how they might frame or might use some PJ Library books before we conclude.
I wanted to share one of my favorite ones that came out from PJ Library not super long ago, which is Leon Ben Sion the 14th, which is about Sephardic cleaning traditions. And we've had our teachers use it in class when they talk about birth rituals, or when they at the beginning of the year when they talk about names. And I just and most of our congregation is Ashkenazi, but I think it's so important that the kids who are not have that mirror, and then the kids who are get that window of not all Jews follow the don't name after living relatives tradition. I also really love Wait, It's Friday and Jeremy Stradle, and those are great ones.
Me too. Good choices.
And just to say, PJ Libraries you guys have done so much in the last couple of years. I'm really impressed. And to say how far we've come from optional Purim superhero year, where I was to where we are now. Those would be so many.
Kayla and all of our friends from Greenspoon and PJ Library, I'm wondering, can you create, or is there a lists of books by sort of subject content, what are all the books that highlight diverse families, and all of that? That would be just phenomenal. And maybe it exists.
Yeah, I'm going to our website now. If you go to the books category on the website, which I'll send the link in the chat, you can sort it. Yeah, and the question was also books by grade. So yeah, you can sort on our website. You can sort by age, you can sort by holiday, you can sort by values. I think that diversity is what is either in values or topics. So you can sort by Sephardic tales. You can see which books came out this month. If you don't currently receive books to your institution, you should reach out to your local program professional. They can hook you up that you can get the monthly, cream of the crop current most diverse books which are coming out. And we also have podcasts and other like games and stuff on the website too, which you should look into as well.
And what's coming out hopefully this summer is a list of books, values, and tour portions. So if you're running Touchbox or anything, we are doing a mashup. We had it circulating 100 years ago. You guys are like part of the OG crowd, which like is just, I've been with the foundation for 10 years. So I appreciate your reflections. And so we just remade that list where it's in design mode with our current book selection.
Do you have the books that are being sent or distributed in the 40 other countries? I know Israel's, the books that are sent to Israelis in Hebrew are different books, I believe, but like the books that are being sent to other places in the diaspora, are they the same books that are being sent to American kids, or are they and just translated, or are they different books? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it depends on the copyright of certain books. So some books, they're getting the same book, but in Hebrew or in Spanish or in Russian, and some books are specific to those countries, depending on country law copyright things.
So I'll share another thing that I've done that has been like really successful in getting kids aware of the books and the stories and the authors and the illustrators is I take the book and I make it into a script. And I need to contact Alan Silverstein because I've already done 2 of his Meet the Latkes and the Hamantaschen, and the kids love those books and the carryover. And we made costumes and they performed it, and the ownership, the mirror that happens when you take on a role is pretty intense, because we now have grandpa, walking around our school all the time, and the kids go, oh, you played grandpa, and that's just part of the magic of it. And it all starts with a book.
We're coming to the end of our hour, and I wanna thank Kayla for all the work that she put into this, and thought and care, and Tracy and Elisa also. I'm sticking in the chat 2 things. One is a short evaluation form, and I also want to make a little announcement about a program that we are launching at Hebrew College in August, Bonim B'Yachad, which is a program for new and aspiring Jewish educators in supplemental settings. It's a teacher professional development program that'll focus on pedagogy, content, and theory. It's a 10-month fellowship. It's highly, highly funded. We have a few spaces left. We have many applicants, but the applications are due next week, so don't delay too long. From the website, you can get the application, you can sign up for an information session, and you can nominate someone. There's a little slideshow, there's tons of information. But I think it'll be a fabulous program, and it's a fellowship. Like, what better way to learn than with a cohort of educators that you'll travel through the Jewish year with. And I will stick my email in the chat. So, Kayla, any last
Tracy, just quickly, the New Hampshire Jewish Federation does a great job. They've been, and I've been with them since the beginning. And when they were like, "Oh, we can't do more than this many," and I'm like, "Yes, you can. Yes, you can." So it's took off like crazy like 4 years ago. So it was great. Yeah.
Dina is very crafty and she makes little PJ book earrings and all sorts of accoutrements if you want to go shopping in her. So if you have coffee with her, have her bring her PJ
No,
jewelry.
so I'm very, so again, in New Hampshire.